And welcome to The Extra on this Tuesday morning show that connects you with the topics and issues and people that are important to you. Very important person here today, Catherine Hammond, Hammond Law Group. Everybody loves Catherine when you come on.
Oh, it is so good to be here.
Well, and you share such great information, not just about estate planning, but about life too. And the one biggest thing is live life, right? Because you never know.
Right. That's it exactly. And being with you here on The Extra is a great place to do that.
And I love that you come on the show. And today we are going to talk about some of the things that we might overlook in estate planning. And it's those things that you're like, oh, I've got it all covered. And then it's kind of like the grocery list, right? Or you go to the trip to the grocery store, right? And then you think you have everything and you get home and you're putting away groceries and then it's like, oh, geez.
Right. And usually it's the chicken. It's like the main dish that you forgot.
Right. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And so because we have lots of notes to cover today. So let's hop right in. And this one is interesting to me. You're going to have to explain.
Okay.
So one of the most overlooked things is digital assets.
Yes.
What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, it's a whole new thing. We didn't even have to worry about this, 20 years ago for sure. 10 years ago, not such a big deal, but our email accounts, our social media accounts, our financial accounts, and the access that we have, many of us don't get hard copy statements in the mail. All of our connection to our bank accounts is through digital access.
Right.
And of course, our Google accounts, many of us have everything on Google. I have photos, I have Google Docs, I have
Google
Gmail
Drive,
accounts.
yeah.
Exactly. All of those things. And then, of course, cybercurrency. I don't know if you've picked up some Bitcoin yet, Renee.
I've kind of run away from that, but it doesn't mean a lot of other people have not.
Right. And so what happens is, let's say Mr. Jones dies and he has a bunch of automatic payments coming out of his bank account. Those automatic deposits, when he dies, the automatic deposits from his Social Security check and his pension, those stop, but all of the automatic payments are still going out, and none of those payments goes through. And this happens to people all the time. The mortgage goes unpaid, other bills go unpaid, and because Mr. Jones didn't leave his family a way to access his email account, nobody knows what's even going on, and nobody has the opportunity to get those bills paid appropriately.
So one thing that we need to do is figure out how to solve that. Does this actually have to be in the will, or is this just information that needs to be provided in the estate planning?
Right.
Is that a good, valid question?
That's exactly the right question.
Okay, great.
Yeah. That's why you're so good at this. So you need a plan to give somebody else access, and the plan is going to look a little bit different for the different types of digital assets that you have. Very rarely is it helpful or necessary to make a statement inside of your will or trust unless you have something that has substantial value.
Okay.
Cybercurrency has its own particular rules. Bitcoin has its own particular rules. And so for something like that has actual value, if you want it handled differently than the rest of your estate, I would specifically mention that in your will or trust.
Okay, so say for, like you're saying, cryptocurrency.
Exactly.
You need to separate what's to be done.
Well,
Possibly.
if you want it to be handled differently, if you just want it to be given with the rest of your assets, you don't have to say who's going to receive it, but you do have to specifically authorize. There is specific authorization that you need to fill out for cryptocurrency.
I did not know that. See, you can
There
tell I'm
is.
not in the cryptocurrency world.
Exactly. And so for all of your Google accounts, whatever you have through Google, there's an inactive account manager that you can set up that will try to notify you and then notify other people. And you can set that up so that people have specific access to your Google accounts. Facebook has a legacy contact that you can set up so that they know who is specifically authorized.
Okay.
There's actually legislation that addresses digital assets, the Uniform Fiduciary Access to Digital Assets Act, in case you were looking for another long name of legislation. But the bottom line is often digital assets require specific authorization in order to be shared with your loved ones if you're either incapacitated permanently or you pass away. So it's all very specific. Talk to an estate planning attorney who knows what they're doing with digital assets, or do some research specifically on the assets that you have.
So really quick, Catherine, before we have to go to break for the digital assets, it sounds like from like what you're saying from the legislation and the specific authorization for disclosure, it sounds like you need to have that again in some form of writing, right?
Yep.
Saying
Specifically
this person,
in writing.
So Mr. Jones set John Jones Jr. as his person. Okay, for the digital assets.
And that authorization often has to be done specifically through the custodian or according to the rules for that custodian. So Google has their rules, Facebook has their rules, your bank has their rules. You need to address that specifically with each custodian of any kind of asset.
Perfect. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, pets. I'm sure this is a big one.
Oh, it's big and very important.
Big and very important. We'll have more with Catherine Hammond Law Group next on The Extra on KRDO News Radio. Welcome back to The Extra on KRDO News Radio. Today we're talking with Catherine Hammond Law Group, and we're talking about overlooked items in estate plannings and wills. And we just talked about digital assets, which in itself is a thing to navigate. But here's something that's really important, and it's hard for me, of course, being a pet parent. Most everybody's a pet parent, right? But pets are overlooked, and this statistic is startling, Catherine. 500,000 pets are orphaned annually due to death or disability.
Yep.
500,000 a year.
Yep, exactly.
And it just
Stunning.
wasn't.
And they're somebody's beloved family member.
Right. And I can't imagine if this person passed away or became disabled that they would just want their animal orphaned and dropped off at and I understand the other family members' side too, like, I can't take in, whatever the situation is.
Right. And for much of America, they, pets, once they've been owned by somebody else, often, the pets themselves are seniors. And I don't know how many senior pets you had, but they tend
to get
senior
pretty
pets. Expensive.
Well, yeah, they can be expensive.
The vet bills,
yep.
they need the $8,000 surgery, or, there are a lot of
special food.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so, and they just require more care and attention at a certain point in life. And so people are reluctant to take them on, and often it's primarily because of the financial component. And so if people take the time to map out, first of all, somebody who would be a willing caregiver for their pet before you pass away, ideally have a conversation with somebody and say, hey, if there's money to take care of the food and vet bills, would you be willing to take in Fido?
Right.
Leaving a named caregiver who already knows and is willing, and ideally a little bit of money to completely take away the burden. There are people who would take in a senior pet, but they're also trying to feed their children.
Right.
And I know I've been in that situation years ago. Our cat, our family cat, that really was my daughter's cat, got bitten by the next door neighbor's dog. He was coming back through the fence, and dog grabbed him into his abdomen, and it punctured all the way through.
Wow.
And so the surgery was thousands of dollars. I was a single mom. It was very hard to come up with the money. Those kinds of situations, so much easier with a little bit of money. So you can't leave money to a pet in Colorado.
Oh, you can't. So you can't say like Fido.
Right.
Will
Fido
receive
gets $10,000.
Yeah. Right. For care and you
exactly.
can't. Okay.
Because a pet is considered personal property, not a living being. And so, and dogs aren't very good at managing their money anyway.
Really, they're not. I try to get my dogs just to do basic chores and
Exactly.
not happening. But
Right. Yeah. I heard about somebody trying to get the dog to balance the checkbook, but
it didn't go well either.
no.
Yeah.
So, leaving some money, you always have to do that inside of a trust.
Okay.
And you can do it inside of a will that has what's called a testamentary trust, a trust that's activated after you die, after it goes through probate. Or you can do it through a revocable living trust, but setting aside money, naming somebody who's going to manage that money and somebody who's going to care for your pets. Or if you don't have anybody, you can just leave it for your trustee to find somebody to care for your pets. That makes it a whole lot less likely that your beloved Fido will be the one who's dropped off at the Humane Society and eventually has to be euthanized.
And that, again, is a staggering number. 500,000 a year are orphaned because of the oversight. And,
Right.
I forgot to worry about Fido.
Yeah. So let's also put in a plug here for
Yeah.
people to adopt older pets.
Oh, I love older pets. I'm always been an advocate for older pets.
Yay.
Okay, and let's see. We can start talking about this before we have to take a news break. Plan for personal property. So you're going to have to explain that one, Catherine.
So, we all have personal property
Correct.
in our homes. It's our furniture, our jewelry, our antiques, our coin collections, our pots and pans.
Uncle Tom's sweater that you don't want to lose. I don't know.
Exactly,
I'm just coming up with
yes.
anything, okay?
Absolutely. And usually those personal property items are included with a basic provision in your will or trust that says my personal property goes with everything else and gets split 50-50 between my two children.
Okay.
They may even make plans for the largest assets, within the will or trust. Most people don't really think about the details of their personal property and what to do, with Uncle John's beloved sweater.
Right.
Uncle John, let's say was a World War II hero.
Yeah.
And his sweater is priceless in the family. Even the pie plate that Grandma every Sunday baked a pie in,
Right.
or the tool set that Grandpa used, for his entire lifetime. People fight over personal property
Oh, yes.
at least as much as they fight over the bank accounts.
They do. And it's amazing how those fights get started.
Right, because it's the emotional attachment.
And so you need to be, I'm guessing, and we'll talk about this when we come back from news break, but you need to be more specific, correct?
Absolutely.
When it comes to personal property. Okay, so we're going to take a quick news break. When we come back, we'll break down being more specific when it comes to personal property and other overlooked items in estate planning. That we'll have more. Catherine Hammond next on The Extra on KRDO News Radio. I always do that. TJ, why do I always do that with that new intro? He's like, I don't know. I don't know. It's the new intro, Catherine. I can't get used to it. Welcome back to The Extra. Today we're talking with Catherine Hammond, Hammond Law Group, and great tips today. Of course, with Catherine, we talk about estate planning because Catherine is with Hammond Law Group, but we also talk about life in general. And today we are talking about overlooked items in estate planning. So far, we covered digital assets and pets. Oh, that broke my heart. And by the way, if you missed any of The Extra, it's always uploaded to podcast afterwards, so people can go back and get information. But we are also talking about personal property. And we use the example of Uncle John Tom's whatever's sweater, right? And sometimes people in their estates go, okay, so 50% of the personal property gets divided like the financial assets, right? And then the next thing you know, there's a mass fight over Uncle Tom's sweater.
Right. And sometimes, Aunt Mary dies, and less than 24 hours later, her kids are driving up to her house.
Yes, and they're walking through
sneaking
going,
in,
and that's
taking stuff.
Yes.
Yes.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
So you need to be
Not
specific.
respectful.
Right. No, not at all respectful.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally. And we've all been in those situations where somebody's literally walking around that's mine, no.
Right.
No. So
Right.
you need to be very specific.
Exactly. And so for those items, like the precious sweater from your uncle who was in World War II, or the wedding ring, or, the the pocket watch, whatever those precious items are in your family, the pie plate, the tool set. Make a specific list. In Colorado, it doesn't have to be included in your actual will or trust. Make a specific list of who you want to receive the items that might be most controversial,
Okay.
and then sign and date that list.
So it does not have to be in the will specifically.
It does not.
Can it be contested if it's not in the will specifically?
No, it's completely valid.
Okay.
Just like a will or trust would be, as long as it's comprehensive. You've accurately described the item, you've said to whom it goes, and you have signed and dated it. That's all that's
So,
required in Colorado.
Catherine gets the Uncle Tom sweater.
Exactly.
Renee gets Aunt Mary's pie plate.
Right.
That kind of a thing.
As long as you bake me a pie.
Well, I really, if you don't know about my cooking and baking skills, Catherine, I might rent a Village Inn. How's that? And then put it in the pie
That
plate.
sounds perfect, but then we can honor Aunt Mary.
Right?
Yeah. And that's what it's all about. And how can we then also use those items in a way that carries on that legacy? So have a list of specific beneficiaries for the things that you can make a specific list for. Obviously, you can't do that for everything.
Right.
It's helpful if you outline a plan that you want your family to follow and put this, in the instructions with your estate plan that say, for all the rest of my personal property, here's what you're going to do. You're going to draw straws, and everybody, goes in that order. You pick one thing, you go around a circle, and when it's your turn, you pick the next thing that you want the most. Or use Monopoly money. People can bid on stuff. Like
That's a good idea.
Have
Have you ever had clients do that?
I have.
With Monopoly money to
Yes.
bid on personal property?
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So somebody comes in as the auctioneer, here's Uncle Tom's sweater, here's Uncle Tom's sweater.
Right. Right.
Wow. Well, that's a fun way to do it.
Exactly. And we have an agreement that we can have families sign saying, I promise not to fight
Right.
over mom's estate, including the personal property. It's not legally enforceable, but it sets something in their brains that at least they made a commitment not to fight.
Right.
And it sure doesn't hurt.
And again, we've all heard of those situations where somebody swoops in from somewhere and just starts, like you said, either sneaking in or just walking in like, I'm taking... No, you're not.
Right.
So keep the family peace doing that. Okay, and we've talked about this several times, and this is very important in several ways, but healthcare wishes, and you have to be specific.
Absolutely.
If you become disabled otherwise. You
Yes.
have to be extremely specific and make sure that's not overlooked.
Yes, and it goes beyond what we've traditionally addressed. So the healthcare power of attorney names somebody to make your decisions. If you can't communicate those, everybody knows they need one. Living well, if you're in an unconscious or comatose state, do you want artificial nutrition and hydration to keep you alive? The HIPAA release that allows your family to find out if you're in the hospital, how you're doing, what room you're in, so they can visit you. But those only address the big things, a couple of specific situations. There are a whole bunch of other more subtle situations where your family might have to make a decision and you can't communicate your wishes, and there's a default that our society has moved toward to keep you alive as long as possible. I'm just finishing reading a book called Knocking on Heaven's Door. It's the story of a gal whose father had a stroke, was not functioning well anyway. He needed to have a surgery, and they said, well, he's going to do better if they put in a pacemaker. They put in a pacemaker. He continues to decline cognitively and physically. He doesn't want to be alive anymore. Just about kills his wife trying to take care of him full time. She has no life. He doesn't want to be alive, but the pacemaker is technically keeping him alive. And nobody will disable the pacemaker because they feel like it's murder.
Right.
So, thinking through what makes life meaningful to you, in what kinds of situations would you want your life prolonged, in what kinds of situations would you not want your life prolonged, that's the conversation that I want people to have with their families.
Well, in Colorado, with the shift in laws and the approval of that law being passed where you can take your own life.
But only if you're still mentally capable.
And have to have the approval of 3 doctors, right?
Exactly.
So this, go ahead and like you're saying, this does not affect this if you are, because if you're not mentally capable
Then you
and you
can't
feel
do anything.
strapped.
Right.
that creates a big problem.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we ever go to a place where that law allows people to say ahead of time, if I'm in this situation, I don't want to continue, and something could actively be done. But at the very least, if you don't want your life prolonged, if you don't need more days on this planet, if you're not living a good life, if you're not able to participate and not able to function. My mom was in a, basically vegetative state for about 11 years.
Wow.
She didn't want her life continued, but the nursing home offered for me at the end of those 11 years the opportunity to give her a feeding tube to keep her life going even longer, because that's what we do in our society.
And would anything, and before we have to take another quick break, so would a DNR or a living will also address just a portion of that healthcare decisions?
A DNR could address that. A living will is so limited in scope.
Okay.
It really doesn't specifically address that situation.
Okay.
I mean, it could have applied for my mom at that end stage.
Right.
If she had had one.
Okay. Okay, let's take a break. And when we come back, business, right? What happens with businesses if you become disabled or pass away? We'll find out. Catherine Hammond, Hammond Law Group, next on the Extra on KRDO News Radio. And welcome back to the Extra on KRDO News Radio. We're talking with Catherine Hammond, Hammond Law Group, and we're looking at everything, and we realize we're going to have to carry this over, parts of this to the next time, because there's so much that unfortunately gets overlooked in estate planning. And in the last few minutes, Catherine, though, we really do want to talk about businesses, because I'm sure when, people are planning stuff and they kind of may forget about, I have this business.
Right. And they might think about at least saying who gets the business. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they just leave it with everything else. But even mentioning who gets the business isn't quite enough if it's a business that you care about. And so, let's talk about somebody who, started a medical practice.
Okay.
And they have other doctors working for
Correct.
them. They have a whole staff, a wonderful team. They've been very successful. They're doing great things for people in the community. And doctor gets cancer. Doctor can no longer practice. And I have a friend who's in a similar situation right now in another state where things get really messy if we haven't authorized other people to conduct the business.
Right.
If we're not able to, either if we become incapacitated or just when we die, and we have to give specific authority over the business, and ideally have a whole succession plan so that we know who is going to pick up all of the things that I used to do as the business owner.
Right.
There's a reason why my friend's business is successful. It's because she is an amazing business person.
Right.
And other people need to be trained up in doing all of the things that she used to do. It'll take a whole team to take on the things that she used to do. So having a succession plan in terms of internal management, who's going to have the authority to act on behalf of the business, who's going to have that decision-making and contractual authority, and then who will own the business after you're gone. And often, if you have a successful business, it's not going to be easy for somebody who used to work for you to just buy that out. They
Right.
probably don't have the cash that it would take.
Correct. Yeah.
And so having a buy-sell agreement and maybe even funding a buyout plan with life insurance on your life,
Yeah.
key man insurance, that would enable your business to continue even after something happens to you.
And again, that's just a portion of it, really. I mean, as far as business stuff.
Right.
And do they? And this question, then we have a couple other things to touch on. But can an estate attorney handle the business stuff, or is it recommended to deal with a business attorney that works with? Does that make sense?
I believe that it's best handled either by an estate planning attorney who does a lot of business planning as well,
Okay.
or a team,
Right.
An estate planning attorney, and somebody who specifically does succession planning. There's somebody in particular in town, Pass It On, started by Don C. and his daughter Misty, is really kind of running the show now. They are fabulous at working as part of your team to make sure that your business is going to continue even when you're not here anymore.
That's fantastic. And of course, we need to touch on really quick. Of course, there's always a starting point with estate planning.
Yeah.
And Hammond Law Group has, there goes my brain, has workshops, right?
We do.
That has workshops to help people start the planning process.
We do, and we just had our workshops for the month of June. Our next workshops are coming up on Wednesday, July 25 and Saturday, July 28. If you can't wait that long to get more information, you can go to our website, which is coloradoestateplan.com. And if you go to coloradoestateplan.com/get-educated, we have past interviews with you, Renee, and webinars that we've put on so that people can get some basic information. Our office phone number is 719-520-1474 if there's anything we can do to help.
Right.
Here.
Well, and you were doing something in January that you would like to do again.
Yes.
And I mean, this is great. It's for first responders, correct?
It is for first responders. So firefighters, police, EMTs, all of those folks who are out there protecting us as a community. We had a special offer in the month of January where we were doing free ancillary documents for those folks. They don't have anybody like the military does who takes care of their basic legal needs. And that was extremely well received. When I just heard about the fire near Durango, my heart goes out to them, and I know like they're in danger as they're protecting us. So we are going to offer free ancillary documents again, powers of attorney, medical directives, HIPAA releases to all first responders. Call our office, 719-520-1474. We'll offer this through the end of July. My team doesn't even know that I'm offering this yet because I just
when the
heard
phone
it.
starts ringing and they're going, wait, what?
Exactly. I'll let them know as soon as we're off air. But 719-520-1474, call and we will get you set up.
Yeah.
There's no hassle. We're just really honored to help take care of the people who are taking care of all of us.
Absolutely. And we look forward to next time, Catherine, when you come on the show, and we'll carry this over, this discussion of
we have more to talk about.
We have a lot more to talk about. So, Catherine, thank you so much. And coming up tomorrow on the Extra, the stormwater fee will begin on July 1st. We've got all the details for you and break it down. That's tomorrow on the Extra on KRDO News Radio.